Yeah? So that is the positivity that Obama has brought to the South African community. And even here, if you notice, after Obama, the number of white old women that have come up on television through the X Factor claiming they're mixed-race children, when before they left them in the hospitals and left them in the homes. So for us who come from those backgrounds where the government told you that you are black and you are mixed race, Obama has been a positive. We know that he has to work for America, and America is working against the third world. But for Obama's stature, just as a mixed race person there, claiming his African origins and his white origin, I think for us it's been a positive.
We'll take the sisters.
Stand up, please. So it's 1 minute at a time, yeah?
I just like...
No, he was talking, so 1 minute at a time.
You're talking quietly, brother.
Oh.
Sorry?
All right.
Yeah, it's about Nkrumah, isn't it? I just wanted to say that I was really informative presentations, but I'd just like to ask you, what can we learn from Kwame Nkrumah's legacy that he has left, both on two levels, in your opinion? Present African leaders, what can we learn, what can they learn in instilling all of the positive legacy that Nkrumah has left for us? Also, on a personal level, what can we learn?
The legacy, political legacy issue is a little bit difficult because at the time that Nkrumah came up to independence and agitation, that was in the last century. There were two competing forces of ideology. There was socialism and capitalism. And there was a Cold War in terms of that supremacy. And we got caught in it as Africans. In the 21st century, I think there's going to be a necessary shift away from those principal ideologies, as we've seen in terms of the banks collapsing, and as we saw in the dismantling of the Soviet Union and the various socialist states. I think that shift is going to make most of us, and some of us who call ourselves pragmatists, re-examine what it is that our people need. And that re-examination is about this, looking at real issues that confront people. At a higher level, there are issues about climate change. There are issues about gender issues. There are issues about racism. There are issues about the world coming together. And I think that it is now all those concepts that we need to start looking at. At the end of the day, Nkrumah was a pragmatist. He worked with China. He worked with the Soviet Union. He worked with America. What was Nkrumah's interest was the good of his own people. The political legacy is that unless you have sought what is good for your people, you will never be able to satisfy them. Because you cannot sit and run a country in Africa or anywhere in the world based on the diktats of the World Bank or the IMF or the IFC or the European Union. What they want is about how they can also profit. So when British ministers say that there's corruption in Africa because 40% of the money we send there as capital is returned into this country, what I say is that there is corruption because you have not come to help us. You have come to use us to increase your own resources. So that paradigm has never changed. When African leaders sit down and realize that what we want is for the good of our country, what we want is for the education of our people, what we want is for the health of our people, what we want is for the jobs of our people, at those basic levels, that is when we then realize that Nkrumah left a real legacy. Because when people did not have jobs, he created what he called the Workers' Brigade. He created the Builders' Brigade. And one of the things that I always say about the Workers' Brigade was that I had a very troublesome cousin who wouldn't do anything. After he left school, he was just loafing around, making several women pregnant and all over the place. He was a bad boy and everything. And his father brought him to my father and said, find a job for me. And my father took him to the Workers' Brigade. And they sent him onto a farm somewhere outside Accra. And they stayed on the farm, they lived on the farm, and they worked on the farm. They were paid. But I remember one weekend, after he had been on the farm, he came back with his bag of maize in his duffel bag, with a fowl under his armpit, and walking with a swagger on the streets of Buko to show people now there was dignity in the work that he had done. That is what African leaders should be looking at. That we have the land, we have the things. If we don't do it and we look forever for our salvation from the West, it will never come. So that is this thing. In terms of personal, I think that is just an inspiration that somebody who came from humble backgrounds and was not endowed with any powers could actually listen to people and let those people help shape his life so that he will become a servant of his people and work towards attaining independence, not only for Ghana, but for the whole of African continent.
Okay, family, well, you've had quite a lot of information about Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, all of the people who impacted on this great African warrior. And we'd like to just give another big round of applause to Brother Adesanya for his